One of the things that we are doing during this sermon series is bouncing back and forth between the gospel according to Mark and the gospel according to John. When we are in the gospel according to Mark, like we were last week, even though I brought Matthew into it, when we are in the gospel of Mark, we are focusing more or less on those times when Jesus tells the disciples about what he is going to go through, about suffering and death and resurrection, and invites them and us to come along with him on that same journey. And when we are in the Gospel of John, as we are this week, we are focusing more or less on who Jesus tells us that he is, and why we can trust him when he asks us to follow him on that journey that leads to resurrection, but that does go through suffering and death on the way. Because you can't get to resurrection unless you go through the death part. This week in the Gospel of John, we have Jesus telling us that he is the good shepherd. He says, right to his disciples, right to people who would write this down, right to people who would tell us, he says, I am the good shepherd. Jesus likes to make these I am statements in the gospel according to John. He makes, I think, 7 of them, and I'm not going to try to name them all because I'll forget one. But we have I am the good shepherd. In a couple of weeks, we'll have I am the true vine. Elsewhere, we have I am the bread of life, and I am the resurrection and the life, and those kinds of things. And these are important statements. John is doing a little thing here. He's being clever. Because way back in the book of Exodus, there is this moment where Moses meets God. Moses is out and about one day. He's keeping some sheep for his father-in-law, just kind of wandering around, and he encounters a burning bush. And the burning bush tells him, hey, I'm God. I am the God of your ancestor Abraham, and of Isaac, and of Jacob. And here's what I would like you to do. Your kinsfolk, your extended family, all of those descendants of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob are being held in slavery in Egypt. And I've heard them cry out. So what I would like you to do, Moses, is go to Egypt and go to the people and ask them to leave. Leave their chains behind, leave their slavery behind, leave Egypt behind, follow me, and I will take them to a land of milk and honey that I promised to their ancestor Abraham. And I would like you to go to Pharaoh, the ruler of all of Egypt, and say to him in no uncertain terms, let my people go. And Moses says, yeah, I'm not sure about that. Seems risky, not a great public speaker. Maybe someone else? But God is pretty insistent. You're the man for the job, Moses. You're going to do this. I'll help you along the way. I'll get you some assistance. Your brother's a good public speaker. He can come along with you. It's all good. And then Moses says, well, but when I get there, who should I say sent me? Like, they've been in slavery in Egypt for a long time. They probably don't remember who the God of their ancestor Abraham was. So just, when they ask, why are you here? Who told you to journey into Egypt and do this crazy thing? Who should I blame that on? And God says, I am that I am. I am what I am. I am who I am. I am, like amness. tell them, I am sent you. And so when John uses these little I am statements, he's drawing this connection between Jesus and God. Just like he did at the beginning of his gospel, when he said that the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh, and that's this Jesus person. He's hearkening us back to that idea that when Jesus speaks, God is speaking. So that I am is important. I am the Good Shepherd is saying I, Jesus, God become flesh, am the Good Shepherd. There are Christians who make a huge deal out of these I am statements. I remember hearing again and again from folks about the I am statements. For the reasons that I just told you, that when Jesus says, I am, Jesus is saying that he is God, and if Jesus is God, we should probably listen to him. But there's a problem that comes along with putting too much weight on I am. We can come to focus on I am. And we can kind of unmoor I am, separate it from the rest of stuff, the rest of the things that are in the gospel, the life that Jesus led, the words that Jesus said. We can say that the important part is that Jesus is God. And so when he says, I am the Good Shepherd, the part that's important is I am. And the rest is just, the Good Shepherd. Ba, ba, ba. I worked really hard on that joke. Okay. It wasn't that clever. I told you last week about some churches, and I don't want to be mean to other churches, but some churches who have interesting interpretations of who Jesus is, what Jesus wants, who God is and who God wants. And I mentioned those churches where pastors preach what's called the Seven Mountains Mandate, the idea that Christians should be in charge of certain parts of society, including government and entertainment and education and all those sorts of things. I told you about churches that bless assault rifles and hold shooting drills after worship. And I promised you that I was not lying to you. These are real things that actually exist. And later that day, Holly was nice enough to, something came across her TikTok feed to send that to me. That was an example of one of those churches. I'm not going to name it. If you want to know, I can tell you. But it's a whole ministry and a whole church that does those things. It's right up on their website. You know how some churches on their website have videos of like the band playing or the preacher preaching? They have those. They also have people target shooting. And it's not nice, cool, calm, hobbyist target shooting or self-defense target shooting. It's, we are ready to take over. We are ready to conquer in the name of Christ. Because that's what Jesus wants us to do. That's what I am wants us to do. And this particular church is associated with the Moonies, who are a little odd on their own, but they're not the only ones. And I don't want to dwell on this except to say that there are a lot of Christians. There are a lot of churches. There are some big churches who see I am and think I am someone who excludes the wrong people and throws them out of my fellowship. I am someone who goes out and conquers the entire world and makes other people living according to my moral code. I am someone who stands up big and strong and undefeated in the midst of every challenge. And that is why it is important to read the rest of the statement. Because what Jesus says, what the Word become flesh says, what the God who is love, who has become one of us, says, is I am the good shepherd. And the good shepherd does not kick sheep out of the flock. The good shepherd goes and finds more sheep. The good shepherd is out looking for sheep. The good shepherd is going to people saying, hey, you want to be a sheep? You want to be a sheep? You want to join the flock? You want to come in? You want to get in here? In this place where you can come in this field, where there are cool streams and soft grass, where your cup can overflow? You want to be part of that? You can be. And the good shepherd does not go out and conquer. The good shepherd protects the flock. There's a bit of weirdness here. Just before this passage, Jesus says that he is the gate, and he talks about a thief, but that thief has disappeared. The wolves are barely there. There are some hired hands who need some work. But mostly this is, I will protect you, no matter who you are. If you're part of my flock, I am here for you. And the good shepherd does not stand undefeated in the midst of conflict. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The good shepherd doesn't even have his life taken from him. He just lays it down of his own accord. You're going to come for my sheep, says Jesus. Take me instead. I will be enough. The reason that I am drawing this distinction, the reason that this distinction is so important, is that it is easy to create a God, to create a Messiah, to create a Savior who plays by the rules of a broken world, who plays by the rules of death and sin and everything that makes life less, who plays by the rules that are not working for us, and who encourages us to go deeper into that, to go deeper into brokenness, to go deeper into sin and death and everything that makes life less, to make that our entire thing, and to bless that as holy. But the God who is love, who comes into the world as one of us, the Word become flesh, Jesus, the great I am, presents an alternative. And an alternative that we need to listen to. If our brokenness is going to be repaired, if we are going to get out from under the heel of sin and death and everything that makes life less. And that is not to push things or people out, but to invite people in. That is not to ride out conquering, but to say, here we stand and we will protect and care for one another and anybody else who cares to show up. And that we may not stand untouched and unhurt by the world, but that we will sacrifice for each other. And for anyone else who happens to show up who needs us to take that stand. We will do that. Because we are promised that on the other side of that is whole new life, is holy new life, is grand resurrection into a whole and holy new world. And the reason that we can trust Jesus, when he asks us to walk that path, when he asks us to take that road to resurrection that leads right through suffering and death, the reason that we can trust him is because he has already done it. He is doing it with us now. He will do it with us tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. He is not asking us to do anything that he has not done for us. He joins us in this work, and so we can join him in this work. And the risk we take is nowhere near as great. There's almost nobody in this room, I suspect, who, if they stand up for someone else, is at risk of being crucified. So we can do the little bit that we're asked to do. We can go look for sheep who need a home, who need a flock, who need a place to be safe, and invite them in. We can protect those sheep, frankly, whether they're part of our flock or not, who need a home and a place to feel safe. And we can take the slings and the arrows and the shots and suffer through them and come out stronger on the other side. Because someday, if we do this work, there will be one big flock, governed by love, following Christ, bringing new life to the world. We can all be good shepherds. Thanks be to God.